Well, hello everyone. Welcome to English 101, section S06X. Welcome to week 4. Um, by Sunday, we'll be over halfway through our class. It's going by very quickly. Hey, I have a lot of things I want to say in our weekly update video, so please watch it to the end. I'm going to talk about the persuasive essay, the MLA research essay, some issues that I'm running into with process essays, how to sign up for your research question for the MLA research essay, all sorts of stuff. So bear with me. I'm going to take in a lot of places and hopefully make some work a little bit more clear for this week and actually for part of the course, the last part where we work on the MLA research essay. But let's go to week 4 to start. So week 4 is all about persuasion, and you may hear me use the word argument. And when I use that word, I think people associate anger with argument. But when we're talking about persuasion and argument, we're talking about well thought out reasoning. Now, it's hard sometimes if you've had a strong opinion not to be, dispassionate because our feelings can be very strong about issues. However, remember logical fallacies from last week. We want to try to avoid those as much as we can. The first thing I want to talk about is you really have two options to address both the persuasive essay and the MLA research term paper. Some choose the research question right away, and then they write the persuasive essay to address that. Then for the final term paper, they can simply expand or enlarge their discussion and the number of sources. So the persuasive essay, which is due at the end of this week, is our typical 3 to 4 page essay, has a smaller number of sources than what the MLA term paper will. But you can write about the same question, the same issue for both. Now, the advantage to doing this is that you'll already have your persuasive essay. And so all you need to do now, I say all, but it's still a pretty good leg up, is expand that persuasive essay from the inside out, adding more paragraphs of discussion and analysis and making your points, adding more sources. Some people choose to write their persuasive essay about one subject and then their MLA about another subject. And that's totally fine too. There are advantages, I think, to expanding your persuasive essay because then again, it takes some of the pressure off. It's not like an entirely new essay that you're writing. So give that some thought as you come up with your research question, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Eric has actually posted his, so we got a great example in there already. Before I get to the research question, I want to talk about some helpful research databases. So for our final 2 essays, persuasive and the MLA term paper, only MCC databases are allowed. So I've explained in little 5-minute videos, Academic Search Complete, CQ Researcher, Opposing Viewpoints and Context. This is the one that's outside of MCC, and Procon is a free resource. I say it's a great way to settle an argument if you're having a debate with friends or family or other students, because you can all go to the same place and check it out. But you'll want to investigate these 3 fairly soon, since the persuasive essay is due at the end of the week. I'm going to talk about process essay issues at the very end and show you some tips and techniques in Word that might help. Our reading this week has to do with persuasion. And for discussion board, the first one, you'll be reading either the 2 essays on torture or the 2 essays that really are more like gender differences, men and women trying to manage life. And they're very interesting. This is sort of a, like I would call it, 2 sides of a coin argument. And this is a little different. So when Anne-Marie Slaughter wrote Why Women Still Can't Have It All, it was responded to by Andrew Cohen with What About Doing the Best I Can? So they're companion pieces that way. You'll be summarizing a database source. So you want to summarize an article from one of the databases described above. And I would recommend that you use the article, one of the articles from your persuasive essay, or one that addresses your research question. That way, you're not only summarizing the article, but you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're going to end up using some of that in your essay, so you don't have to do something brand new. Persuasive essay information is all down here. Take some time to read Dallas's, my former MCC student. Her persuasive essay is very, very unique. She actually won an award in the writing contest with her narrative essay a couple years back. But before you do anything, you'll see what I call the stale topics list in item E below here. Here it is. And you want to look at all those because, as an educator, I've read just about every topic you can imagine. Some of them I've read too many times and they're just getting really old. Polarizing topics, ones that are pretty much already been proven now. Like there's not much debate about global warming now. I guess the debate is, how permanent will it be if we can reverse it and those kinds of things. But so some of the questions that I've read over the years are just really, really old. And I'm always looking for something very current that might affect you personally even. That's always good, that you have a substantial interest in. And when you write a research question, think about a real question you have so that you don't have a canned answer all ready to go. And your research will lead you to the answer, which will probably be your thesis, both the persuasive and the MLA research term paper. Let's talk about signing up for research questions, though. Like I said, I think Eric posted his and I replied to it. So over here, you'll see on Blackboard, here's where we sign up for the research question for the final MLA term paper. I've got it open here. And one more click, it will take you to what we call a wiki. All right. So a wiki, oh, it looks like Thomas has posted too. We were just chatting via email. A wiki is a shared document. So when you're ready to post your question, and I posted one that I wrote about a couple years ago, and I'll be sharing this essay with you next week. I'm an avid cyclist, have been for many, many years. I find Michigan somewhat dangerous, depending on where I'm at when I'm riding. And I had this question a couple years ago, like, really, what can be done to make bicycling safer on Michigan roads? When you're ready to post your question, go into Edit Wiki Content. Notice, don't your name is that down below. And then you can pick up right after Thomas's question. Now, once I posted, you want to go back in. So I left Eric some information here. I would recommend all 4 of the databases that are in the videos. And I recommended to him to only use research from the past 2 years. The main reason for that is so much has happened with electric vehicles. And I would probably give Thomas the same advice here when we talk about minimum wage as a living wage. And this has been very, very important, I think, given COVID and so many of my students and friends who've lost income. And, a lot of it is just because the wage that they were getting anyways was so low. And so going back to some of these jobs seems less and less attractive now, given what the pay rates are. So what would that be like to have a living wage? And there's lots of research on that. When you're ready to click submit, I'm just going to cancel out of this. And like I said, I'll come back and check these daily. I'll give you a thumbs up, thumb down, but make sure you come back to see my advice and my comments. The next thing I want to do is talk about the process essay. And I'm actually going to go back to, let's see here, week 2. Some requirements that people are missing. All right. So I'm going to pull up the instructions as a Word document here for a process essay. And this is a sample essay I'll be looking at with you in just a few minutes, but I'm waiting for the other one to load while the virus scan runs. It's running. Here we go. So it's always important before you submit your assignments, the final copies, to go back through the requirements. So the introduction paragraph, this was really an area that needed improvement in most first drafts I read. Defining specialized terms. If you have any technical terms or just terms that the general person who doesn't know your process wouldn't understand, that's very, very important. And I'm going to show you how to use the find tool in a minute here, but we really want to avoid overusing you and your. Now, a little is fine, but some essays it's used, and I have the find tool, and I could count how many times it was used, and sometimes it was over 100. So you might have a sentence like, "You should mix these together." It's actually more direct, just to make it an imperative. Mix these together. You don't need to keep saying you. We understand who you is. It's us, the reader. So you want to be careful. Use transitions. Use a variety of transitions. This is important to kind of make your essay flow from paragraph to paragraph or from step to step or both. And then when you're writing your conclusion paragraph, avoid summary, but do explain some reasons why, or a story or an anecdote that says, why this process is important to you. Kind of a living example of a story from you is very helpful. A couple years ago, I had a young woman who wrote about a dish she made. I want to call it paella. I'm probably saying that wrong. It's got everything in it. And in the last paragraph, she shared, an experience where she made this for her family and how everyone loved it and the wine she chose. And it sort of just nicely warmed the reader up with the explanation of the process, but then capped it off with this wonderful, delightful experience. So go back through all the instructions before you submit. That's very, very important. All right, so I want to show you a couple of tools. The first one I want to show you is a discussion board, and then the rest are tools I want to show you in Word. For some things I've been running into in your writing, pay attention to these, especially if you're new to Word, because I'm going to show you some things that are really helpful and can help you revise your essays in ways you probably never thought of before. But let's go to discussion board, and then we'll wrap up with Word. So one of the things that concerns me about discussion board, and I'm just going to go into this link because it's right here. When you create a thread, I think a lot of you, you're in a hurry to get it done, and I somewhat understand that. You really should spread discussion board out over at least 2 days. 3 is even better. But before you submit, please use the spell check tool before you hit submit. I'm getting a lot of spelling errors, punctuation errors. These are items, because this is a writing class, you're going to score lower on your posts unless you take a little bit more care. Read it out loud to yourself. But this tool is fairly basic. You click on it, it will just give you the choices. No misspellings, of course, because I don't have anything here. But do that always before hitting submit. Now, what I'd like to do now is show you some tools in Word. So this is a process essay written by a student in the fall semester for the English 101 class. And I just want to show you some formatting things before we get too far. So maybe you can't see it, but you'll notice that there is extra space that's been added in between the pieces of the heading, between the heading and the title, between the title and the paragraph. And notice how each paragraph has extra space in it here. And it's unfortunate, but this is what Word defaults to, and it's not MLA. So usually what I tell people, if it does this, when you're all finished, I'm on the home menu, and I've got the full version of Word here, so what you're using in Office 365 might look a little different. But if you click on paragraph, I'm going to select all my text first, and then click on paragraph. Make sure this is always set to double. You'll see there are a lot of choices. It shouldn't be single or multiple. Always set it to double. And then this little box should be checked. And watch what happens now when I click OK. All those extra spaces disappeared. So everything is good and kosher there. The next thing is when you put your last name in for the page header, sometimes what happens is the font is different here. And I can tell that because if I go to home, it's telling me it's Calibri size 11. So it's a small detail, but to be consistent with everything else in your essay, go ahead and select that text, turn it into Times New Roman, size 12. And now we're all set to go here. Now, one of the things I just want to kind of zoom in a little bit here more for you. One of the things I want to tell you is pay attention to, pardon me, any green squiggles or red squiggles. Now, what Word is seeing here is what we call a fragment. If I click on it, it's saying fragment, consider revising. So you might say a slight hiss might come from your front tire or something like that. So it's a complete thought. Sometimes they are spelling. Of course, Walmart is spelled correct here, but doesn't know everything. Schrader is not spelled right here, actually. I believe it's S-C-H-A-R, but even if it was, I actually have to check that, but even if it was the word Presta, these are unusual. So you've got to kind of go in and take care of those. Sometimes it's just a word that's missing a letter. Here it says it should be 2 words. I believe RockShox is actually written as 1. Here today, see how it's missing punctuation? We need a apostrophe in there. Here sometimes it doesn't make sense. Do not press squeeze. Once the tube is in the rim, if you have a Presta valve, put the nut on the valve and run it against the rim. We're just kind of choking on this because it's very long and it's also not very clear what he wants done here. So this is a very, very important thing. Whenever you see squiggles, please address the squiggles. That's one of the tools that Word gives you. Now, one of the things about repetition, so we talked about you and your being repeated. There's a wonderful tool in the home menu here. In my screen, it's way over here called Find. So it's going to find a form of the word or the word individually as many times as it appears. So I'm going to type Y-O-U. Now, if I just want to look for you, I'd put a space after it, but I want to look for you and your. And then I'm going to go down and click Find in Main Document. And look at that. I'll bring it up again. Look at that. It appears 116 times a form of that in this essay. That is a lot. So my advice to this writer is you really need to eliminate almost all of these. And again, you can go back through the sentence, or excuse me, the essay. And a lot of times, you don't need your replacing the bike inner tube. With one just simple read of this, anyone can replace an inner tube in no time. But it gets, in this essay, was a especially egregious example where there are really too many U's in yours. So take a look at yours. I mean, if you've got over 20, 30 U's, you're going to need to do some revision to make the essay more direct. The nice thing about the Find tool is I can use it to find what I call junk words. So I'm going to look for the word huge. Find it in main document. Looks like there's only one, so that's nice. But one of the things about huge, as I mentioned in my presentation, is it doesn't really mean anything anymore, and we overuse this word. I hear it misused so often. So what you can do is like, okay, I don't know what to use for huge. I'm going to right-click on the word. Excuse me. And then I'm going to go down to see this little pull out here called synonyms. And it will pull up a short list of synonyms: enormous, vast, gigantic, massive. I kind of like the word massive. I'm going to put that in. So you're on the trails going over massive rocks. So we took care of that. Another great thing with the Find tool is you can use it to find what I call junk words. So like there is. Let's see if we can find any of these. There is usually an indirect way of starting a sentence, unnecessary. And you can see here there are 3 of them. There is no reason to be afraid or spend lots of money. You could just say, don't be afraid or spend lots of money. There is, there are, really are unnecessary in most cases. So it's another great tool for you to go in and use when you're revising. So I got a lot of stuff I presented you today, but I hope some of these will be helpful for you, especially some of those tips and tricks in Word. I have one more that I want to show you in a second, and then I'll let you go. And I'm just going to go to the MLA template. And just go there for it. So I'm going to open the template. And it's just taking a second to open here. But you'll be conducting research for both the persuasive and the final MLA term paper. And the template, has pieces already kind of built into it for you. But sometimes when you copy and paste, things get messed up, change, and so forth. So I'm going to go to the Works Cited page. Now, one of the things that will happen is people will paste text in, and this often happens. Either the spacing goes away, it's single-spaced, or the hanging indent, which means anything after the first line is indented. It's kind of the reverse way we would do it with paragraphs. They can't make it work, so they'll hit Tab, excuse me, and then now the whole thing is, move it back and wants to do that. If you hold Control and Tab down together, it puts in what we call a hanging indent. So now it's indented these two lines the way they should be. This is a great little trick. It's Control plus Tab as you're working on your essays. You'll be adding all sorts of information and sources alphabetically by the author's last name or the first main word in the title if you don't have an author. And it's important that as you organize it, you keep those hanging indents there. Without it, it's hard to see where one source stops and the next one begins. Well, this was a lot, but I hope it's helpful, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Again, if you have questions, please let me know earlier in the week than later, because that way I can get it in a more timely way and hopefully help you finish up the week a little bit more strongly too. Take care.